Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life Stories Podcast, People Helping People. I'm Shara Goswick, your host. My guest today is Paris Clough. Paris is a financial advisor, and he loves what he does. He loves helping people manage their money, learn how to budget, and plan for the future. He has had a crazy journey himself where he lost everything and had to build it all back up. And so he knows what he's talking about. He knows how to help, he knows what mistakes to avoid making. And he is genuinely interested in helping other people. He's got some great resources online. And after you listen, I encourage you to go to his website and check them out. You don't want to miss this one. Thanks for being here. I'm excited to talk to you because money is not something I think we talk about enough. You said that on your website. It's
Mhm.
people don't want to talk about it, they're scared to talk about it, but we need to talk about it. And I think people sometimes get overwhelmed in their finances. They get overwhelmed when they don't have a budget. They don't know what they're doing, and then it's just scary. People wanna deal with it. But you've been doing this for a long time. Over 20 years, you've been working, financial services. So why did you decide to do that? Was math something you always loved, something you wanted to jump into, or
No, I really appreciate you asking that question. It's a great question. And quite honestly, I appreciate the way you asked it because there's a common misconception that in order to be good at money, you have to be good at math.
Right.
And while math does play a part, I'm not going to dismiss that. It's really more to do with habits, behaviors, and beliefs
Mm.
than it is with math. In my findings, in my experience dealing with people. And so the story's kind of funny, actually. I was in 2001, so about 24. Oh, goodness sakes, yeah, 24 years ago now. So, I was sitting at my corporate job and the HR department sends me an email or sends me a message somehow and says, "Hey, you qualify for the 401k. We need you to fill out your information and pick all your investments and move forward with your registration for the 401k." And I was like, "How do you even spell 401k?" Like, I didn't even know anything about money other than it was green and I wanted more of it. And so I was like, okay, I need to really learn what this is. I feel like I'm somebody who's really conscientious usually, and what I like to do is just think about, well, this is kind of an important decision, like my retirement. Like this is kind of up there with, who do I marry? What house do I buy? How many kids do I
Right.
have? To me, it's like you got to have your ducks in a row when it comes to your retirement. You only get one shot at it, really, and you better do it right, so to speak. And so I thought, I asked some friends, coworkers, said, "Hey, what did you guys do?" And I got the craziest answers, like flip coins, throw darts, put it all in the company
Gosh.
stock. I'm just like, yeah, I think I'm gonna go find a different, set of instructions and education here. So I DIY'd it a little bit, started reading a bunch of books. I probably read, in the next month or two, I probably read 5 or 6 or 7 books. Just really just started reading a lot. I fell in love with what I was reading about, and I had finally got the confidence to invest and do my own 401k. And then I had a coworker say, "Paris, I just qualified too. And I see you reading all these books. I have no idea. Would you help me?" And she was older. So I figured, why are you asking me? You should know all this already, right? So I was really genuinely confused, but she told me she had no idea. She didn't know what to do. But I shared with her what I had learned. I shared with her what I had been reading. And she looks at me and she says, "Paris, you have a gift. You should do this for a living. I finally understand what to do with my 401k and the monies. I've worked at several places. I've never had it explained to me like you explained it." And I'm like, "I'm not even a professional. I just I just shared what I had learned." And so I thought, "You know what? Let me go see what it would be to get into a profession like this." And while I was searching, I interviewed a couple of my buddies who were, my buddies' dads and that were CPAs and had professional designations in the money financial world. And as I was doing that, I ran across a guy who was a recruiter for a broker dealer, and he said something. He says, "Paris, you can go to school and you can learn and then earn, or you can come work with us and you can earn while you learn." And I was like, "I'd rather earn while I learn." And so between "you should do this for a living" from that lady
Right.
and come work with us and earn while you learn, I was like, "Okay, I'm in. Let's go." And so I became a financial advisor in 2001. The end of 2001, I got fully licensed as an actual financial advisor working for one of the largest broker dealers in the country. And I just from there I just built my business and it was kind of fun. That's how I got started.
That's amazing. And what you said at the beginning, you don't have to be good at math to necessarily be good at money. I'm good at math. I am not good at money. So that is the truth.
Yep.
One of the things that you talk about a lot through your stuff is people getting their MBA, the massive
Mhm.
bank account. Why do you call it that? And what do you mean when you're talking about that?
Well, I just think it's funny because, we go to school to get degrees, we go to school to
Right.
learn all these things. And one of the things that we end up doing is, first of all, school doesn't really teach us about financial literacy.
Right.
Not very well, anyways. There's a couple. My kids, I think, in the high school where they went, they had a financial literacy course, and
Mhm.
I got to see some of the homework they were doing, and it was pretty good, and I wasn't pretty
Yeah.
impressed. But at the end of the day, the vast majority of people don't get a really good education. They don't get good literacy, and they aren't taught how to really discipline their emotions and their habits around money. And so I think there's a lot of people that just really they need the help. And I try to make things fun. I have a pretty decent sense of humor. I think my kids roll their eyes quite often at my dad jokes, but
So it must be good.
yeah, exactly. That's a good indicator that I've got good dad
Yeah.
jokes when my kids are rolling their not another dad joke, dad.
Uh,
So I thought, what is something people go to school to do? They go to school to get their MBA. Well, that's, one of many things, reasons to go to school. And I heard somebody years ago from stage say, "Hey, who wants to get their MBA?" And I was like, "I don't really want a master's in business." And they're like, "No, no, no, the master's massive bank account." I'm like, "You know what? I'm going to steal that. I'm going to take that and use it." And so I've used that for years. I actually have started, there's a platform called School, Skool.
uh-huh.
I've started a business, I've started a group there, a community there, and it is called Build Your Massive Bank Account. So it's just you go to school to get a degree, and my school group is your MBA, which is Massive Bank Account instead. And I don't and I mean that metaphorically. I think that savings accounts at banks have a purpose, and beyond the purpose, you should not have your money more than we can discuss this if you want, but I don't think you should have more than maybe a month's worth of emergency money in a commercial bank savings account.
Yeah.
So the idea is more metaphorical to just build a huge bank account, build an asset, build wealth. It's really based on that, not actually having a large sum of money in a
Right.
commercial bank.
If you I mean, you suggest having just a month in a commercial bank account, where should the rest be? I mean, shouldn't it be easily accessible?
100%. And that's where I would say having money in more of a high yield savings account.
Oh, okay.
Commercial banks don't offer high yield savings accounts that I found. Usually, credit unions are higher than commercial banks,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of banks online now that are offering high yield savings accounts that are 3, 4%. It was 4% was the going rate for a while, but the Fed, as of the recording of this video, we're October 2nd,
Yeah.
2025. So the Fed just lowered their rate, which means a lot of the banks lowered their rate. So
Yeah.
I have a brokerage account that has a savings account that I can, easily invest with, but it's a high yield savings account as well. So I have my safe money in the high yield savings account, my emergency fund, my 3 to 6 months worth of cash. I have that in the high yield savings. I have a month's worth of more in my commercial bank, and
Yeah.
then I have 3 months or 4 months in my high yield savings account that's attached to my brokerage account. So if I fund it more or the interest that I earn,
Right.
I'll often throw that into my investments as well because it's connected. But I recommend having a high yield savings account for any more money over that,
Yeah.
because the 1 month in your commercial bank should be really close to your checking account. Click a button and it's in
Right.
your checking and you can take care of it. Where a high yield savings account may take 24 to 48 hours to actually get the money over there. So it's still
Yeah.
accessible and it's still relatively quick.
Yeah.
But I don't think you should have too much money earning 0.01
Right.
or you know what I mean?
Exactly. Definitely. Did I read somewhere that you went through a time where you lost everything and you had to build it back up? How did that experience shape what you are doing now?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. It's one of those experiences that I wouldn't wish on anybody, but I'm glad that I went through it and looking back. Now,
Yeah.
while I was going through it,
Same
and
here.
yeah, while I was going through it, I'm like, what is happening to me? I was like, God, what are you doing to me? What lesson do I need to learn? And please help
Right.
me learn it fast.
Yes.
So in 2008, I was a financial advisor for again for that a large company, and I was also a mortgage professional. So I did loans, and I was a senior loan officer for California Home Mortgage in California. And what happened was the market, as you know, in 2008 took a huge turn. At the beginning of that year, I had set a goal. I was commissionable. I was commission only, so I was 1099 commission only associated with this broker dealer, and, I was I was on track to have a six-figure commission that year,
Yeah.
and I was super excited. By June, I was well over my limit. By August, I was like, "This is gonna happen," and then the end of August, early September of that year, everything just started going fast down the tubes. And so I had a lot of, my own business go down because, not in the mortgage industry. I actually
Right.
got laid off from that situation. But I also had a lot of clients that were buying homes and flipping them, and they would take the large chunks of money and they would invest it with me, and I would hold it for I would, I'd manage their assets while they were looking for the next property to them. Then they would
Right.
take it and buy it and flip it, and they would give me the assets. And I had several clients that had just taken money. They bought a bunch of properties, and they were like, "Paris, we need the rest of our money. We're not gonna
Um,
be able to last. We're not gonna be able to keep our properties afloat without having some cash flow." So one by one, a lot of my clients just started canceling or liquidating all of their assets. And when you're a financial advisor, you get paid on the assets that you have under management in many
Right.
ways. It's one of the main ways we get paid anyways. And so I just literally slowly but surely went from knocking on the door of six figures to, I think that next year I made 20 or $25,000. My wife had to go back to
Yeah.
work. She was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years, and she was like, "I'll go back to work so that your business can keep thriving, work, you can keep focused there."
Yeah.
I had to make a pivot in that same year, 2009, I think. I made a pivot into health insurance, and I got really good at health insurance. And over the next, 5 to 10 years, I really built a nice health insurance business, and that's kinda where, I have a six-figure passive income in my health insurance business, which is pretty cool. So I literally I remember the day when I was sitting on the couch. I just hung up from the creditor screaming and yelling how they're gonna take me up and down and all
Right.
around, and they're gonna, you know, every last penny, they're gonna, take it out of my skin, and, all the threats they do.
Right.
And I just thought to myself, "God, there's no way out of this except
Yeah.
with you." And, because I've exhausted all of my resources, I've exhausted all of my situation. And I had a significant, God experience in that moment where he came to me and said, "I will support you. Let's build back. I'll show you. We'll do this together, and we'll make it." And I did, and it was awesome. And a lot of my friends and associates in that era, they made other decisions. They didn't come closer to God. They went further away, and some of
Yeah.
them ended up not being around anymore. And so,
Yeah.
that was sad. But I took the route I took, and I was able to build back. I jokingly tell people that I could literally write a country music song about my experience because I lost my car, I lost my house, I literally lost everything but my wife and kids.
And I know obviously you're the dad, you're the husband, you wanna be the provider, but how did they influence in any other ways as you're building your business back up and all of the things you had to go through?
Well, the reality is that there's an old saying that you shouldn't tell your kids about money. You're not supposed to talk about money. And I thought, this is gonna be a great example to teach, not only as I'm going through it. The teacher learns more than the student a lot of times, especially as the teacher's kinda learning and to trying to figure things out. And so I felt like if I discuss this with the family, if we have regular family meetings, one, it will help me kind of process through, but it'll also give them some insights as to really what's happening to us. Because when you lose your house and you're 9 or 10 years old, and you're like, "Okay, what happened? What, Dad? What's
Right.
going on here?" And or I think I had at the time I had a 9 year old. I had a 9 year old, 7-year-old, 5-year-old, and a 1 year 2, anyways, it's a little one.
Yeah.
And so the 1 or 2-year-old doesn't really remember much, but the rest of them, they're like, "We remember that." And so I felt like it was important to discuss what was happening, and just for my own therapy, but also to help the kids through it too. And my wife, was so amazing and gracious, and she was very supportive through it all. We made a commitment to, thick or thin, good,
Right.
all the traditional vows you hear, right? Good sickness and health, riches and wealth, poor as dirt,
Yeah.
we'll stick together. We're doing this together. We're in this together. And so we proved that in our family. We proved that that commitment was real because we went through some stuff. But I think building out of that, one of the things that God shared with me was that, hey, once you learn this lesson, I'm gonna need you to share it with other people because it's a
Yeah.
powerful lesson. And one of the main lessons that I learned three lessons, well, main lessons that I teach in my classes and to my clients and my YouTube channel is you need to learn how to manage your money more effectively.
Right.
It's not really about how much you make, how much you keep, or how well you manage what you make. The next thing is to protect. The protection aspect of things isn't just insurance. It's also having good, strong savings accounts and buffers, emergency funds and sinking funds, and then really learning how to grow your wealth in a way that's productive and powerful.
Right.
And whether that's a business that you do, or whether it's a investment portfolio, or whether it's a real estate empire, how are you going to grow your wealth? And I really came out of that realizing the first step was I had managed my money pretty good, and as a financial advisor, I had delusions of I would teach my clients, I would talk to my clients about budgeting, and so I had a delusion that I was doing it myself. And while I was doing a very good job, and I lasted longer because of the savings I did have, I lasted
Yeah.
longer through that process than I thought before I had to lose everything, because I had about 6 months worth of assets that I drained, and I was trying to keep, for about 6 months, I was trying to keep myself going and get jumpstart
Right.
and kickstart my business back up, but it just went too long, and I had to lose everything to learn the actual lesson. And so building back from that, I learned how to manage my money more efficiently, more effectively. I learned that conservative is, the more boring you are with your money, the better. And
Right.
I was like, "I'm not doing any speculative investments," because a big part of my loss was that I was involved with some of my own speculative investments,
Mm.
some buy and flip real estate options that, "Hey, come, put your money with us and we'll buy and flip," and they weren't buying and flipping either. And so it just was it was a perfect storm of just absolute chaos for
Right.
me and my life at that point. And I realized, you know what, coming out of this, I'm gonna build stronger. I'm gonna build, with a different, and I'm gonna teach people what I learned during that process, and
Yeah.
that's where I am today.
That's awesome. So you mentioned a budget. Budgets sometimes are bad words for people. We know
Yeah, it's
people.
the B word of finance, right?
Yes, but budgets are important. So for somebody listening that's never created a budget before, what advice could you give them just to begin the process?
I don't like, calling it a budget myself. I actually use the word cash flow statement, and cash flow statement kinda sounds a little sexier, so I that's one of the reasons why I like to use it. But it's an absolute business move that, businesses have cash flow statements, and the CFO of a business uses and creates that cash flow statement for the business owners. And I feel like we should become more like a CFO of our household than maybe
Mm.
just, taking it casually, because casualness creates casualties, and you don't want to be a
Right.
financial casualty. So I think that if you consider, if I was to hire, for example, if you're listening to this right now and I hired you to be the CFO of my household's finances, would I go broke or would I be wealthy?
Right.
After hiring you. So that's kind of the idea. You need to treat it like, okay, I'm actually working to build something here. And so if you treat money with disrespect, it'll disrespect you. But if you treat money with respect, it'll respect you. And that might sound a little woo-woo, but it works. And so what I say is learn to discipline your income. Understand your income. That's the first half of a cash flow statement. The second half of a cash flow statement is learn to discipline your expenses. And you can't change a habit you don't know. So what I say is look back on the last 30, 60, 90, 120 days, whatever you feel. I recommend 90 days at least. Look back on the last 90 days on what you spent your money on. Like what were your habits over the last 90 days? How much did you spend going out to restaurants? How much did you spend going out to the movies? How much did you spend on entertainment, on subscriptions that you don't use anymore mostly?
Right.
How much did you spend on, groceries? How much did you spend on gas? How much did you spend on everything that you spent money on? And it's gonna be tedious to do this, but it's enlightening, and awareness will bring the change that you need. So if you look back over the last 90 days and then you categorize everything, and then you take an average, because 90 days is 3 months, so take an average, and then "Hey, if I spend $100 in groceries or in, going out to eat in 1 month, and 100 and 200 in another, and 150 in the other," your average is 150. So going forward, you wanna keep that average or reduce it if that's an area where you'd like to say, "You know what? I could do a little better. Maybe I don't need to eat out so much, so I'll do a little better." And so moving forward, the next 30 days or so, you should structure yourself so that you know where you spent money, what your habits already are, and then which one do you wanna start to curb and discipline first?
Yeah.
Because you can't discipline your mortgage payment. I mean, it is what it is.
Right.
You can discipline your entertainment. You can discipline your subscriptions. You can discipline your, your how much you spend going out to restaurants and other things. You can discipline those things. So those are called variable expenses.
Yeah.
Start with those. Once you have everything categorized and everything listed in front of you, you know exactly how much you spend every month. You know how much money you make every month, and hopefully there's a positive number as a difference between those.
Right.
Hopefully you're spending less than you're making. And that's the first. I personally, the first step to financial freedom is believing and achieve that you can do it. The mindset shift is most important. Then after that is having a positive cash flow. If you do not have a positive cash flow, you're not going to make it. You're not going to achieve financial freedom. And so having a positive cash flow is critical. And I have a system where I show you exactly how to create a positive cash flow and with whatever budget you have right now. And it's pretty awesome.
That is awesome. Sometimes it's eye-opening to sit down for the first time and look at what you've been spending over the last 6 months or 3 months or whatever. I don't know how you tell people to build an emergency fund or build a savings. What is your process, or what do you suggest for people, and why is it so important?
Absolutely. Great question. I think that one of the things that a lot of people are here often is have a 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. And then they say, I spend, let's say, I don't know what the math, what everybody's finances are, but I'm just going to say an average. Let's say that you spend $3,000 a month, or maybe 5,000. That's a little easier math. Let's say you spend $5,000 a month. That's your expenses. Well, you got to have 15 to $30,000 in an emergency fund.
Yeah.
If you don't have an emergency fund yet, and you're looking at where am I going to get $15,000? Where am I going to get $30,000? It overwhelms you, and immediately you go into stress, and that stress shuts you down. And so I would say, don't do 3 months. Yes, your goal is to get to 3 to 6 months, but let's just start with 1 month.
Yeah.
Let's start with 1 month. And let's not even start with a full month of expenses. Let's start with 1 month of your mortgage payment, 1 month of
Mhm.
your rent payment. Just start with that.
Yeah.
So I break it down into really simple things. I say, okay, listen, we need to start with 1 month. I recommend you start with 1 month of your shelter, because shelter is pretty
Right.
important.
It is.
Then build a month of your utilities so that you can keep the lights on in that shelter. Then
Right.
build a month of, everything that all of your fixed expenses, build a month of all your fixed expenses first. Once you have a month, now you're like, "Oh my gosh, it works. I did it." And you have that success. And now go to the second month of fixed expenses. Don't do your variable expenses yet. And then when you get the third month of fixed expenses, now you have 3 months of you can pay the car payment, you can pay the house payment,
Right.
you're good. You may not have enough money to buy food, but at least you have your house and your car payment, right?
Right.
Now go back and start your variable expenses. Start building up a little bit. I personally agree with, I'm a little bit of a prepper. So I actually have food storage. So I recommend that people get 90 days of food. Like, what do you eat for breakfast? Every time you go to the grocery store, buy an extra box of cereal, buy an extra box of oatmeal, buy an extra box of whatever you get. For dinner, same thing. Buy an extra bag of spaghetti or extra, whatever you buy or eat for dinners, just start
Right.
buying that and build up over, every week that you go shopping or every 2 weeks whenever you go shopping, buy a little extra and then start to build up a bit of a pantry and have a household pantry. So I have an upstairs pantry that is that week or whatever, that food we're eating. And then I have a downstairs pantry that as soon as things run out on the upstairs pantry, you just go down to the downstairs pantry. And then when I go to the store, I fill up the downstairs pantry so that it's full. And I always have 2 to 3 of everything so that I have at least 90 days worth of food in my downstairs pantry. And that way, if anything happens, and frankly, that's smart for natural disasters as well
Absolutely.
as for financial disasters of maybe you lost your job. Because when you lose your job, you're going to need to eat. And you might as
Right.
well have, if you can store the food and have it already there, you don't have to have money for it. You can use your money for paying the bills and for other things.
Yeah.
So that's how I
That's so smart.
recommend building an emergency fund.
We were doing that for a little while, and then I don't know why we stopped, but I'm gonna start doing that again. That's so smart, and it's easy to do, just to do it at a little bit of time. I love how you break things down for people because it can be overwhelming,
Oh, yeah.
wanting to have all this money aside for expenses, and for people that don't make that much money, it's scary, and there's no way they can do it. What about debt? How do you suggest people begin to get out of debt? If they have multiple credit cards and they've got these loans, lots of things to pay off, how do you tell them the best way to do that?
So the first thing you want to do is get clear on who you owe money to, how much you owe them, what the interest rate is, and the minimum payment that you have. So it's hard to open up your it's hard to pull your head out of the sand and
Right.
say, "You know what? I'm gonna do it." You gotta get dirty. And I'm reading a book right now, and it's Mel Robbins, I think. She wrote a book called The 5 Second Rule. And it's really cool because sometimes we get overwhelmed with life. We just don't want to do anything. And so we just sit there in despondency or just and just, yeah, forget it. I'm overwhelmed. I'm not doing anything. And she says, when you get that feeling, count to five or count down from five,
Mm.
five, four, three, two, one, and then launch and just do it and just go and act. Action is a great way to overcome despondency and overwhelm and anxiety and panic. And I have those things myself. I'm going to be transparent. I have anxiety on a regular basis. I have, overwhelm on a regular basis. And I am reading this book because I needed the help. And so as I
Right.
feel like I need the help, I think I can pass that on to others. So I would suggest if you haven't looked at your actual debt, how much do you owe? Who do you owe it to? What is the dollar amount? What is the interest rate? That's the first step. And then make a spreadsheet. Or I like spreadsheets.
Mhm.
And I would suggest categorizing all of those things. Who do I owe money to? And then put the amount. How much do I owe? Put the amount. What's the interest rate? Put that interest rate. What's the minimum payment? Put that down. And then I start with there's the famous ones are the debt avalanche and the debt snowball.
Right.
And those are the famous ones that everybody knows about. There's about 6 or 7 others that are really good, and I recommend a hybrid approach. Uh,
Mhm.
after all, once you I personally recommend starting with the debt snowball because it gives you that sense of win. I won. I
Right.
paid off a debt. Start with the smallest balance first, and then take that dollar amount and roll it up to the next one. When you get to the point where you've got 3 or 4 cards maybe that are about the same balance, then I move to the debt avalanche, which is tackling that one with the highest interest rate first.
Yeah.
So I go with the lowest balance first. Once I pay off a few of those or help a client pay off a few of those, then we move to the other things. There's a ton of strategies that really work well on how to do that. One of my clients recently, after about 3 months of working with me, they paid off almost $9,000 in debt, and
Wow.
they didn't change their budget much. And they were like, "Wow, we can't believe we paid off that much that fast," just being
Yes.
focused and working, and working with some clarity about their finances. That was huge for them, and I was
That's
so proud of
amazing.
them for doing it.
It's such a good feeling. It's such a
Mhm.
good feeling to be able to do that. So I know you've read a lot of books over the years, a lot of financial books. Is there a principle that stands out to you from all the ones that you've read that besides the one you just told me, is there something
Yeah.
else that stands out?
So, I think there's a lot of really good books out there, and if you can go read them all, or you can hire someone like me who's read them all and can just sift through them all, and give you the
Right.
exact strategy that you need. That's a little plug right there. Sorry for the commercial, but anyways, I would say for me, financial planning and financial freedom I've broken it down into 7 steps, and these are the 7 steps that I really see very clearly on a lot of different ways. There's several books that I've just finished reading, actually, financial books that talk about that 90-day process I already discussed. So that's a huge
Yeah.
principle and concept. The first one is mindset. You got to have awareness brings change, and mindset changes everything. It really does. So, looking at your financial and behavioral finance and financial psychology is huge. You got to understand why do you do the things that you do financially? Why when you see something that's more money than you actually have in your bank account, why do you still buy it?
Right.
Why do you continue to get into debt? Why did you get out of debt and then get back into it? Why didn't you stay out of debt? Like, so let's talk about your mindset, your habits, behaviors, your beliefs. What did you learn when you grew up as a kid, watching your parents do money or watching your friends' parents do money? What did you learn as a teenager around money? So those are what did you learn with your first job? Have you ever been scammed? So you have this, idea that all these business opportunities are all scams. There's nothing that's out there that's gonna work. So all of those behaviorals and belief systems need to be looked at first. The next thing is cash flow. We just talked about that. You have to have a positive cash flow. The second one is what I call strategic savings. You got to have a buffer. You got to build a savings that's going to give you the strength that you need. Then, once you have a good strong buffer, I recommend starting to get out of debt. Debt management is huge. Then after that, risk management. You got to what are your risks in life? And that's not just having insurance, life insurance, health insurance, car insurance, all the insurance plans and options.
Right.
It's also having a strong savings account to avoid that risk. And then we can actually work on retirement. Once you have that kind of foundation laid, now we can start working on building wealth in retirement. And whether that's in the stock market, whether that's building a business that's going to have a cash flow, the end of the day, what you want to do is you want to build an asset such that it pays you a cash flow every month or regularly enough that you can live off that and become work optional. And then
Right.
the last thing is the last of the seventh step is um, none of us are there's only 2 guarantees in life, right? Death and taxes. And so what do you when you pass away, are you going to build something in this life that you're going to be able to pass on to your children?
Right.
I sometimes think to myself, my family's been in America for 200, almost 200 years. And why don't we have more properties? Why don't we have more wealth in our families? Like, what did my ancestors do that I mean, I'm grateful for their efforts and their sacrifices to, and all that they've done to bring me into this world. But I also think to myself, why, how did the Rockefellers or the Kennedys or
Right.
all these, the Carnegies, these wealthy families that have generations of wealth. And I'm like, I want to be the generation that changes that. I want to be the
Mhm.
generation that says, okay, the Clough name is going to have wealth from here on out.
Yeah.
And I hope I do. And so legacy planning, that
Mhm.
final capstone for me is that legacy planning. So I look at wealth and money as a holistic approach, as a lifelong journey and endeavor, not just how do I make enough money to pay for this month's bills, although that's critical if you're in if you're in that stage. But once you've gotten past that, let's to really think about some of the psychology around what is life going to mean for you? What is the meaning for you? And what is the mission for your life? And how do we
Mhm.
create money for that mission?
Yeah, that's awesome. I love all of that. You sort of mentioned it, but what about those people that are listening that are paycheck to paycheck and they want to be able to, create wealth or pay off debt or do whatever they need to do? Is the answer just go get another job? Go start
It
making more
can
money?
be. It can be. I don't, the first thing you wanna do is, to me, you wanna really discipline your spending. And that's the first thing, is learn to live within your means. If you can't live within your means because it really is expensive and inflation is real, then the next thing you need to do is figure out how to grow your means, how to become more valuable to the marketplace. And
Mhm.
whether that's, talking to your boss at work and saying, "What can I do to make more money? What can I do to provide more value to you so that you want to pay me more money?" That's
Yeah.
probably a better approach. If you approach, I don't think I think your boss would drop his jaw or her jaw if you said, "Hey, what can I do to make your business more productive and effective so that you can pay, so that I can get a raise?"
Yeah.
They might say, "Wait a minute, who are you?" And if they might check your pulse or check your, see if you have your temperature. I think if you become more valuable to your workplace, then you have, and I would track that and make sure that you are becoming more valuable, and then you can approach your boss. Or just get a side hustle of some kind. There's so many
Mm.
opportunities to create side hustles these days. Building something like that would be of great importance. But the reality is, you've got to stop spending money to impress other people. And so you
Right.
got to get really clear. Don't buy things to impress other people, because they don't care what you're doing. They only care what they're doing. And so you got to focus on your own life and what you're doing. And sometimes that means that you got to get disciplined. There was a period of time in my life where I had an EBT card, and I had to learn how to discipline my spending, and I pulled myself. So I know what living paycheck to paycheck feels like. I literally had an EBT card. I had Medi-Cal in state of California. I was on low income, everything that you could get, all the benefits you could get. And I built my business back. My wife got a job. We were able to build out. And I think I shocked the social worker when we called them and said, we don't need the services anymore because we're out of it. And not too, she's like, I don't get many calls like this, by the way. And so that I built my way out, and I think you've got to first believe that you can, believe that it's possible, and that's where that mindset comes in, and then just work with your expenses, and then save money.
Mhm.
If it's a quarter a month, save money, because the habit is more important than the amount in the beginning. And then,
Yeah.
when you start to earn more money, save 50 cents. When you start to earn more money, save a dollar. Every month, save something and build that habit. And then, you might look at your bank account, you're like, "Man, I got a couple $100 in that my savings. This is cool. This works. I can do this."
Yeah.
And then it just motivates you to stay disciplined, keep your head down, keep your shoulder to the wheel, and keep moving forward.
I love that. I love because you have been there, like you just said, you've been to the bottom, you know what it's like, so that's why people need to be listening to you because you're not just, spouting off the facts and numbers and you've been there,
Mhm.
what it's like. So that's encouraging and to me that's inspiring for
Thank you.
people. One thing we haven't talked about, but it is, talking about finances is life insurance.
Mhm.
What do you suggest for people? Like, when do you suggest they start getting it, or who does everybody need to get life insurance? Who needs to do that?
Thank you for that question. It's really good. I have actually just finished September. So, again, as of the recording of this video, it's October 2025. September is actually Life Insurance Awareness Month. So, we just finished Life Insurance Awareness Month. I have a YouTube channel, and it's Paris Clough, Financial Coach. And I just finished 3 or 4 videos about do you need life insurance?
Yeah.
Then I did another video on how much life insurance do you need, and then I did another one, what kind of life insurance should you get?
That's awesome.
And so I just finished those videos. The video that's going out tomorrow is a little more, fun, but I just finished those videos on my channel, and I have several that I've done over the years. Every month, every September, I try to do life insurance videos to kind of help people understand. And should you buy life insurance? If you have somebody that has that would be in a financial burden or financial stress if you were to pass away, then you need to have life insurance. And so you might say, well, for a married person or a mom or a dad, that's super simple. Like
Right.
that's a no-brainer. But
Yeah.
what about a single person? So the question then is, okay, if you were to die today, who would put you in the ground? Who would be responsible for burying you?
Yeah.
My parents, let's say. And okay, if do your parent, or maybe it's your aunt or uncle, some member of the family, right? If it's your parents, you can say, do your parents have $10,000 to $15,000 right now that they could part with in the next week to make sure that you had a proper burial? And if they say yes, then I say, okay, if they have it, do they need, do they want to spend that money? Yes.
Right.
And would it be a hardship to them to spend that money? And if any of those answers are yes, then you need to have life insurance even as a single person. Now, the other part of it is if you're a single person and you have plans to get married in the near future, then you should buy life insurance as soon as possible, as soon as you can afford it. Now, how much life insurance should you get? Well, the rule of thumb is there's a method called the DIME method, DIME. D is for debt. Add up all your debts. Let's say you have $50,000 in credit card debt. That might include your car loan. It might include,
Right.
some other, the debts that you have. The next one is income. That's I. So you want to have at least 10 times your annual income. Now you might say, well, if it's too expensive to do 10 times my annual income, then you might say, well, I want to provide 2 or 3 or 4 years, or maybe 5 years of annual income. So that'd be about 4 or 5 times your annual income. Just have some variable in there of your actual income. So let's say you make $50,000 a year. So you're going to have to, I would suggest $500,000, because what happens is if you passed away, that person that receives the money could live comfortably. They could pay off your debts, and then they could live
Right.
comfortably for about 10 years. The next one is M for mortgage. So if you own a home, you want to be able to pay that off. So you want to be able to pay off your mortgage. Well, you can buy multiple policies. So if you don't have a house right now, I would just say go with your debt and go with your income. Don't worry about
Right.
the M. If you're not married, you won't need the E, because the E is education for kids. So if you don't own a home, just do D and I, and then later when you buy a house, do the M. You know, and then if you have kids and you want to save for their future, just that's E. E is for education. So my kids now are only have one. I have 5 kids, and one of them's left to really prepare for college. So I don't need as much life insurance on the E side of things, because the education,
Right.
most of my kids are already, past that, or in it. And so that's the rule of thumb, DIME. So I might suggest that you probably are underinsured in many cases.
Yeah.
And then what type of life? There's two major types. There's term insurance, which is temporary, 10, 20, 30 years, and there's some that go longer. And then there's permanent insurance, and permanent insurance has a place. There's a lot of financial influencers that think that permanent insurance is not good, but I don't believe that, because there's a place for it. And if as long as it's structured properly, and you do it properly, and you do it for the right reasons with the right strategies, it's an uh, absolute power play in your financial plan.
Yeah. It's so important. I am thankful that we were able to do that. But man, and when our term was up, because my husband started his like in his 20s and our term came up, that premium went up every month quite a bit.
It did, yeah.
We're
It can jump quick.
over 50 now, so it jumped quite a bit. But I'm very thankful that we're able to do that. And it is important. A lot of people don't know about it. They don't understand it, and kind of scary sometimes, but it's important to know about.
Yeah, a lot of people get their life insurance from work, which is good. It's better to have something than nothing. However, how often do you change jobs?
Right.
And are you planning to die only while you have a job? Like, what if you died when you on the weekends, or when you didn't have a job, where you're between
Right.
jobs? Now you're in trouble. So I would suggest having something. If you're going to have something at work, that could be in addition to what you have personally. And there's absolute reasons to have term insurance and permanent insurance. And most people, I suggest, get both, honestly.
Yeah. We've talked about a lot of things, and I know there's so much more we could even talk about. Is there anything I have not asked you about that you want to tell me about?
I just want people to know that, it's possible. It's possible to
Mm.
build wealth. It's possible to live in a way I have no since 2000. So when I lost everything in 2008, one of the things that I learned was I don't ever want to go into consumer debt again.
Yeah.
And in the last 15 years, I actually love credit cards because I do all the cashback credit cards.
That's what
And
we
I have a comma in my cashback rewards almost every year
Yeah.
when you add up all the rewards that I get.
Mhm.
And I don't pay interest. I don't
Yeah.
pay interest on consumer debt. I do pay interest on my home loan, and my wife has a student loan because when we lost everything, she went back to school, and so we have a student loan and a home loan, and we don't have car I don't have a car loan. I'm not averse to a car loan because it's secured by the car, but I don't pay consumer debt. I don't have credit card debt. The one thing that I really wanna help the world learn is I believe that, debt is bondage, and debt is a form of
Mhm.
slavery, and when you are in debt to somebody, you you are beholden to them in a at least in a small way,
Yeah.
and there's no freedom in that, and I suggest that you learn how to stop spending tomorrow's money today and start spending yesterday's money today. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're spending tomorrow's money today, you're buying things on credit hoping that your income will continue into the future. Well, nobody has a guarantee into the
Right.
future. However, if you spend from yesterday's money, meaning I earned it already, I saved it and set it aside for the very purpose of buying the thing that I'm buying, and then when you get to the point where you have the money to buy it, you go buy it. I'm
Right.
working diligently to do that with a car, because my car might be going out soon, and it's a little harder with those bigger purchase,
Yeah.
but I like, whenever we go on vacation, we save up first, and then we pay for it. And whenever our car breaks down, I already have money in savings, and I can just pay for it. Whenever we want to get something fun or nice, we find out what we want, we find out how much it's going to cost, and then we start saving for it.
Yeah.
And if I want to give myself 3 months to save for it, I take the total cost, divide by three, and then every month I set aside money for that. And then I go buy it when I'm ready.
Right.
Couple things happen there. One, it disciplines that impulse buy. Like, you're not gonna buy things on impulse if you know you have to save for it first. So it's
Right.
gonna save you tons of money on interest, and most of the time, those impulse buys, after after a cooling off period, you're like, "Why did I buy this?
Right.
I didn't even need it. It's sitting on the shelf doing." And that's especially true with if you have kids. Like, how many times have you
Mhm.
bought your kids something, they play with it for 24 hours, and then it ends up at the bottom of the toy box,
Yeah.
and they never play with it again? So I do the same thing with my kids.
Yeah.
Kids, "Hey, dad, I wanna buy this at the store." "Good, put it on a list. The next time we come to the store, if you still want it, we can get it." "Okay, fine, or let's save up for it."
Yeah.
And so I've saved myself a lot of clutter and a lot of heartache by learning how to discipline myself before I buy things. And so I would say if America, if the world can stop spending tomorrow's money today,
Right.
will shift this whole debt crisis that we're in, not only individually, but I think we'll shift the debt crisis as a nation because we'll build those habits and hopefully and eventually we'll get people in political power and political positions that will have those same habits and beliefs that, hey,
Right.
we need to spend for money we already have, not paying for things today and hoping that tomorrow's money will end up coming in and still being there.
Yes. This has been great. I think this is gonna be so helpful to people. So
Yeah,
thank you so much for today.
I do have a free book that I down that
Oh,
goes through my strategy for helping people find positive cash flow in their budget.
yeah.
So if you go to parisclough.com/free book,
Okay.
that's parisclough.com/free book, and you can download that ebook. There's a upgrade option to visit with me, and then there's another option to actually get my video course that goes along with it. It has expanded workbooks and other things. At the very least, get that upgrade to the video course, especially if you're a visual audio learner and they're expanded workbooks. But at the very least, download my ebook, walk yourself through that ebook. It goes through a story where I actually learned a lot about disciplining my spending. So, and then it goes through my step-by-step process to put several $100s a month back into your paycheck every single month. I've had clients do it where they got 700 a month, 800 a month. The averages, I'm sure those are the extreme examples.
Right.
I've had the average is around 300 a month that people can put back into their budget every month. And so
Wow.
over the course of a year, that's over $3,000 that you can
Sure.
have back in your budget to use towards getting out of debt, save, building your emergency fund, and building your wealth. And so
Wow.
what would you do with an extra $300 a month?
Huh.
That's in my ebook, and download that ebook and let's stay in touch.
Sure. Well, that's awesome. And I will have that. I'm going to put it on the screen, but I'll have it available for people to find it. So thank you, Paris. Also, I should have asked you in this beginning. Is there a story behind your name? Because that's a very cool name that you have.
Thank you. Thank you. So my parents, the story that my parents told me was that they really enjoyed the mythology of the Greeks, where Prince Paris abducted Helen of Troy and started the Trojan War.
Oh.
And so my dad said that there was 2 names that they were thinking about. One was Stephen, I think, and the other one was Paris.
Oh,
I
wow.
I think he literally said that he flipped a coin and it landed on Paris, so I got but it was, inspired by the Greek mythology of in the movie Troy that came out in the early,
Yeah.
2000s is a great depiction of that
Yeah.
whole story, and so it was kinda funny. I jokingly tell people, "My mom and dad never let me date anybody named Helen for some reason." So, anyways,
Well, that is not what I was expecting. That's very cool.
that is cool. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. I'll be in touch.
Thanks for having me on.
Alrighty. Thanks. Have a
Thanks.
great day.
You too. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.